And it's these three factors that come together to create a perfect storm of forces that is impossible to stop, in my opinion. So you've got the poverty, you've got the demand, and you've got the economic generator called prohibition. And it's counterintuitive that the more you wage the drug war, the tougher you are with regard to this issue, the worse the situation becomes. That's because of prohibition economics. I'll give you an example. You can buy a kilo of pure cocaine in the streets of Medellin, Colombia for about $1,500. Fluctuates a couple of hundred from time to time, but basically, let's say $1,500. By the time you smuggle it into the United States and sold it at the gram level, and then cut it with whatever garbage the dealer will dilute it with, and sell it at little gram bags, you can get approximately $100,000 to $150,000 for that exact same kilogram. Okay, so what the users are paying for, essentially, are transportation costs, or rather, the risks associated with transportation. If you sent that same kilo by FedEx or DHL or whatever, it probably costs you $100 or $200 at most. Right? So what you're paying for is a very effective but perverse distribution system. One that where there's tremendous risk rewards built into the system. That is to say, when Congress gets tough on these issues, we're going to throw more law enforcement at the problem. We'll toughen sentences. The higher the likelihood a trafficker is going to get caught, and the more severe the sentence they might have to serve, then the higher the premium they can charge the next person down that smuggling chain. So the drug war then creates these price supports, if you will, unintended price supports, or crop subsidies for narco-traffickers. And that's why the Congress continues to escalate the drug war year after year. We keep going backwards in these policies. So those are the three main factors. I'll talk a little bit about the dynamics of the market. Why, when you apply more pressure in terms of escalating the drug war, it tends to backfire. First one is the economy of the drug war tends to evolve under Darwinian principles, right? Selection of the fittest. The people we tend to capture when we keep escalating the war on drugs are the people who are dumb enough to get caught. No offense if anyone's ever been busted for anything here, but the slang expression on the street, is the dealer who uses loses, right? You'll get sloppy, you'll get careless, you'll get caught. That's who we manage to capture, people who violate their own operational security, they brag too much, they flash too much money around, they use their cell phone longer than they should, and they get caught. Conversely, the kinds of people we tend to miss decade after decade as we escalate this drug war are the people who are the most efficient, the most innovative, the most cunning, the most adaptable. Right? We've been forcing this economy to evolve at a lightning pace. It's kind of like how public health professionals say you shouldn't use antibacterial soaps and cleansers all the time because you'll end up killing off the weak strains of bacteria, and the resistant strains will take over and multiply in that space. That's somewhat analogous to what we've been doing with the drug war. We've been thinning out the herd, taking out the inefficient traffickers. And there's no way to win a war on drugs when your policies see to it that only the most efficient operations survive. And not only do they survive, but they thrive because we've done two things, at least, to help them unintentionally. Number one, we've eliminated the competition for them. We've picked off the inefficient traffickers, their competition. And number two, we've created, we try to constrict the supply of drugs on the street artificially while the demand remains constant, thereby driving up their prices and profits for these traffickers. And so it's almost as if we've been breeding super traffickers through our process of escalating the drug war. And that's kind of the dynamic we're stuck in today. You see this in places like Mexico, for instance. The drug war in Mexico, when President Calderon was elected into office, it was a very controversial election. The margin was even thinner than Florida in 2000. And many people, including myself, think he probably lost that election. But there was already a turf war going on between rival cartels in Mexico at the time. But when he comes in, and he's a right-wing president, he thought, oh, I'm going to be Mr. Tough Guy. I'm going to go out and I'm going to bring the military into this thing, and I'm going to really hammer them, and that'll show them. It's a very visceral approach, very visceral thinking. And what he's done is created an absolute catastrophe. He's unleashed chaos in Mexico right now. More people have died in Mexico than all the U.S. casualties in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. well over 10,000 people now died since it took office. And it's counterintuitive, but when there's a turf war taking place, the worst thing the state can do is get in the middle of it and continue to fight all sides, which is what he's doing. If you wanted to be smart about it, if you must show you're tough, at least take out one cartel and leave the others intact. Because what these cartels are looking for, what they're fighting over, are trafficking routes. They're going to eventually resolve their dispute, and there will be a pax narcotica, if you will. I will traffic in this region, you will traffic in that region, stay out of my area, I stay out of your area. We go back to the nice and quiet business of making lots of money drug trafficking. Now, unless you believe that President Calderon can eliminate the drug traffickers altogether, he's really stirred up a hornet's nest. Because as he attacks all these cartels, he creates the chaos. What the cartels are looking for is some sort of equilibrium, right? Where one side comes dominant in one area, etc. And by attacking all of them, he keeps them all off balance. And each cartel thinks, oh, now's my opportunity. He's gone after the other cartel, he's weakened them, I can take over that space now. And so you move over and attack that cartel, another one comes attacking you, the state comes in and shaking things up all over again, and you will never find that equilibrium that the cartels are looking for, going back to the business of making money. That's roughly the problem in Mexico. And the Obama administration, unfortunately, has continued the Merida Initiative, which is trying to apply some of the lessons of Plan Colombia to Mexico. And it's, in my opinion, making things worse. We've got a serious problem with corruption in Mexico. Just about the majority of Mexico's drug czars have turned out to be working for the cartels. In many ways, this is a problem of our own making, not just by demand, but by our reckless aid in terms of law enforcement and military aid to Mexico. And the reason I say that is one of the most violent groups operating in Mexico and along the border of the U.S. is a group called the Zetas. The Zetas used to be an elite counter-narcotics unit, funded and trained by the U.S. Special Forces, School of the Americas, counterinsurgency training. These were an elite commando unit that we helped fund and train. In the mid to late 90s, some of them decided, you know, we can make a lot more money if we switch sides, and that's what they did. They took the training, the weapons, and began working for the Gulf Cartel, became their enforcers, and today are probably the most violent, the most dangerous group operating in Central and North America. We see this happening over and over and over again. Places in Guatemala, for instance, there's an elite commando unit called the Caibiles, and some of them have turned and worked for the traffickers. We've seen this in Colombia over and over and over again, where a lot of the police and the military, some of them have gone rogue, to borrow a phrase, and began to work for themselves and for the traffickers. And so it's a very dangerous proposition to continue to train foreign forces if you can't guarantee their loyalty at the end of the day, when they're paid so little compared to what the traffickers can offer them. It is a very, very difficult proposition to keep them loyal to your mission. And sometimes it's not even corruption. If you're talking about, for instance, the situation of many small town mayors, in Colombia, for instance, you're in a rural area, there's a more than 90% impunity rate for politically motivated killings, which is to say that any threat becomes a very credible threat. And one of the armed actors, whether it's the guerrillas of the paramilitaries or the narco traffickers, will come to the mayor and say, look, I'm going to make you an offer, plomo or plata. Do you want lead or do you want silver? Take a bribe or take a bullet. At that point, I don't consider that corruption. It's a simple question of do you want to live to see the sun rise the next morning or not. There's very little the state can do to protect these people, and the threats are generally carried out very ruthlessly. Going from Mexico, let's go down to Colombia, where the Obama administration is starting to shift away from the Bush-era policies of Plan Colombia, which began in late 2000. And the main instrument of that policy was the crop duster, to try to spray the coca plants, right? The conventional